Hello, everybody, and welcome to Fresh Outlook. Donald Trump, well, he looks like he is going to win more votes than any candidate ever in the history of the GOP nominating process. But between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders, well, the race still goes on there. And the big prize, California, has not even been awarded yet. Let's say hello to our panel of experts. I am joined today by Albert Goldson from Indo-Brazilian Associates. I am joined by David Goodman from Represent Us and Bill Rosenberg from Drexel University. Albert, I'm going to start with you. How is it possible that Donald Trump, a man who has peddled hatred to the masses, is going to earn more votes than any other presidential candidate in the history of the U.S.? This is mind-boggling. Are the Republicans sanctioning prejudice?
Well, I think Donald Trump is basically, as far as the GOP is concerned, pretty much a loose cannon. He's someone who's gone off the reservation. It's a question of whether he really is a Republican or not. He's, for all intents and purposes, an independent in elephant's clothing, elephant's garb. So he's basically using the GOP as a cover for his own agenda. And he is actually speaking the language of the people. They are fed up with government, they're fed up with the corruption, they're fed up with the economic malaise that we have. And here's someone who at least speaks their language, speaks what they're thinking, and going forward, he could be the Pied Piper. So, you know, we'll see what happens, but he's tapped into something that the subconscious of the American public.
I can agree with Albert largely there, but you get to the dark side. Well, I mean, he has proposed a Muslim ban. What if it was a Catholic ban or a Jewish ban? Isn't that what Hitler did?
Absolutely. I mean, listen, we have to call him what he is. He's a neo-fascist. He's a Caesarist, if you want to use that more traditional term, using Julius Caesar as someone who marched over the Rubicon and changed the republic to an empire, which I think is the real issue that we're dealing with here. I mean, we have a significant existential threat. I know that's pretty heavy language, but an existential threat to the republic. The Republican Party is fracturing, and is, no matter what happens as a result of this election, will not be the Republican Party of our fathers and grandfathers. It's splitting down the middle. I mean, I'm not sure, he may have been an independent, but he's taking it over and turning it into a nativist, nationalist, a populist party, and threatening the conservative base. And I think you're seeing some backlash along those terms.
Part of that backlash, Bill, is Paul Ryan refusing to endorse or support Trump even after a meeting. Is he right? Is he staking out moral ground, or is he covering his political hide?
Well, Paul Ryan, from my perspective, is largely without a true backbone. Okay, he's going to say he doesn't want to support him at this time, and what he's largely doing is saying this because he's concerned about the House of Representatives, which is totally fractured. That's why John Boehner had to leave, because he was being pushed by Tea Party types and sort of nativist types as well, that he's trying to cobble together to be able to write legislation from a Republican perspective. If he really believed that Donald Trump was a danger to society, he should simply come out and say that, but he's unwilling to do that. He's got aspirations in 4 years to run for president, and right now he doesn't want to give up his seat as Speaker of the House, and he also doesn't want to give up his seat as the chairman of the Republican convention. So my sympathies for Paul Ryan really don't run that deep. I think if he was totally principled, he would speak to what he said originally to Jake Tapper when he said, look, I have some serious problems. I don't know what's going to happen. We're going to meet and we're going to talk. But on all of Paul Ryan's base issues, they couldn't be further apart.
Part of the reason I think that perhaps there's this revolution that even has an ugly face to it when it comes to the Trump revolution, or has a kinder, gentler face when it comes to the Bernie Sanders revolution, is because of what's going on in Washington. An overreach, a power grab. I think it manifests itself with this new bathroom edict put forth by the Obama administration, saying that schools across the country have to open up their bathroom doors and their locker room doors virtually to anyone who says, hey, I'm a woman. hey, I'm a man. And perhaps most Americans don't feel that sex or gender is decided so simply.
I think they're just using that as a smokescreen for their own political agenda. It's not, for all intents and purposes, it's not really a serious issue. Again, they're using a lot of misdirection, using that as an example to highlight their agendas as whether they should be more conservative, more liberal, whether they should give more authority to the at the state and local level or the governmental level. It's basically a push-pull power grab as to who would be responsible, and they're using this issue as well as others basically as a smokescreen or basically proxies to push their agendas.
And the bigger issue is really the polarization of this country and in terms of the left and the right. I mean, you can talk about executive overreach, but you also have to acknowledge that we have a dysfunctional Congress. Congress isn't doing anything, they're not legislating, and so both sides are pointing fingers at each other in terms of the reason for, as you start out by saying, what's going on or not going on in Washington these days.
But wouldn't you say most Americans would disagree with the federal policy that has been put forth that the locker room doors and the bathroom doors have to be open to anyone?
Well, I think that's going to be decided in the courts. I'm not sure what the issue is going to be there.
And the other thing is, I think that your initial point about Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders, I think is not correct. I think that there is great dissatisfaction with the way government is running, but Bernie Sanders' points about the problems that we're facing in the United States are not the same issues that Donald Trump is raising.
Except
in other words,
for
well, they are, but they're not really talking about immigration. They're in the same way. They're not condescending to Hispanics, women, blacks, older people, disabled people.
Kinder, gentler.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is that I think the orientation is to try and make it a more level playing field. Trump uses that message in his populism, but the level playing field is to basically level it so white male underemployed individuals feel like they're still going to have their America. That's his leveling of America, while Bernie Sanders is trying to have it as a leveling for everyone. Okay, and that's a fundamental difference.
Okay, we've been hearing this for a while, that underemployed white males, uneducated white males are the ones who are behind Trump. Sure, I bet they are, but there's got to be a whole lot more people than that. He's winning in every demographic.
But if you take a look at the primaries, one of the great misnomers of this whole process is that, first of all, the Republican Party only represents maybe 28% of the American public, of which that 28%, a very small percentage, maybe 30% of them actually are voting in the primary. So we're talking about a very small core of people who are very, very angry within the Republican Party. The real question is going to be what happens when we get to November, when he is a standard bearer for the Republican Party, and he's got to not only deal with the rest of the Republican Party, but also the independents. And my sense is that I'm surprised that he's doing as well as he is in the primaries. You know, he's been very effective, but I think he's going to run into a lot of trouble. We're already seeing it with Paul Ryan not wanting to readily endorse him, who is a Republican. How's he going to reach deep into the Republican Party and also try to cobble out a few Democratic votes as well when women are generally opposed to him and a whole list of other groups?
See, I think Paul Ryan and the people in elected office will eventually fold. What I'm really interested in following is what's happening among conservatives and Republicans who might not be household names. I'm thinking of Eric Erickson, who's a conservative blogger. I'm thinking of this guy called Mac Stepanovich, who is the former chief of staff of Bob Martinez, the governor. I mean, these guys have written open letters and spoken about trying to stop Trump, not from the nomination, that's a done deal, stop Trump from being elected in November. And what they're recommending is interesting. They're recommending that one of three things: either you stay home, you hold your nose and you vote for Hillary, or you vote for a third-party candidate. So this is a way you get Republicans to come out, vote for a third-party candidate at the top of the ticket, and then vote down ballot for the Republicans. Now, that may not be my politics, But I think that's going to be a deciding factor, because if you can depress or change the equation, the calculus of Republican voters in November, I think it's going to change things dramatically. The flip side, if I can just say it, is that the only way the Republicans can win is with voter suppression. We haven't even touched on that. But this whole business of voter IDs, it's going to be a bloodbath at the polling places in November.
Let's switch gears to the Democrats for just a minute. Bernie keeps on winning, and the more Bernie wins, the more calls there are for him to stop campaigning and stop running. How is that fair?
Well, it's not, but it's a tactic that has to be used because they really want to focus on Hillary versus Donald in the national elections. Basically, they want Bernie to step aside so Hillary takes the front, and they can pour all their efforts into this. Right now, the Democrats give the impression that they're a fractured party. Well, some are for Bernie, some are for Hillary, and there's a lot undecided. So giving the perception that the Democrats still haven't decided which candidate they're going to put against Trump really takes away a lot of the power over the Democrats. And just following up on Bill's comment here, is that if the Democrats have the illusion that, gee, well, it's a walkover as far as Trump is concerned, you might have a number of Democratic voters actually staying home, combined with the fact that there are a lot of hidden Trump supporters within the Democratic voters, basically those who are so disaffected, so dissatisfied with what's going on, they're going to use Trump as a protest vote.
It's going to be an extremely close contest.
Yes.
Also, in the open primaries, Bill, we have seen a lot of Democrats cross the aisle and vote for Trump. Part of the problem, or part of the strength of Trump, is that he's good on TV. He's made a fortune working on television. It is hard to beat a man who speaks to people versus a person who is an orator.
So my point would be that I think a lot of those people that crossed over, Democrats that voted for Trump, did so he would win the nomination under the belief that he would be able to be more easily defeated. I think that's really what was going on. But second of all, I think something that I really don't hear discussed very much is that right now, if we count all the delegates that are still in play, going all the way through California, and we assume that Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders split, in other words, half and half, which is sort of what's going on right now, Hillary Clinton does not have enough delegates to get the nomination on the first ballot unless the superdelegates put her into office. And I think that's what Bernie Sanders really wants to have happen, because he wants it to make it very clear that insider politics is putting into place Hillary Clinton. And I don't think we hear about that much, but it really is the case that if you split the remaining delegates 50-50, Hillary does not have enough delegates to win on the first ballot.
And there could be a landslide in California.
Well, basically, also, there's a very dark side to this. It's not mentioned in the media, whether it's as far as getting the Democratic nomination, or if Hillary does get the Democratic nomination as far as the presidential elections are concerned. There's still a very deep gender bias here in the United States. A lot of people may not accept the fact of a woman in the United States taking office at the highest levels. So that's something that I don't think the polls have reflected. I'm not sure if anyone's really looked into that, although they might say, well, that doesn't exist, but that is definitely an element going into these
There's also the
candidates.
issue, just let me say though, that we hear a lot about the gender bias, and I'm not going to say that doesn't exist, but there's even a bigger gender bias when you look at unmarried women, okay? Unmarried women, women that were married and now have children, they don't behave the same way as women in general also. So you have sort of two tiers to this. You have men versus women, and then you have the group of unmarried women, some with children, some that don't. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out going forward.
Hillary is a failed candidate. I don't think it's that she's a woman. I think she's just not a likable person. I've interviewed her. She's perhaps the most unlikable person I've ever met. Al Gore and her. Horribly nasty individuals. Bill Clinton, though, warm, wonderful individual. Love talking to him. So, it's not an anti-Democrat thing. It's that she is not a warm person. Her voice is painful to listen to at times. I think if Elizabeth Warren was running, she'd have a lot of young women on her side, and I think she'd have men on her side as well.
Elizabeth Warren right now is playing a great role.
Yeah, Elizabeth Warren's not going to run, and the fact is that Hillary's going to be the candidate no matter what we feel. I'm not sure that Bernie's going to have a landslide victory in California or New Jersey in early
That's why I
June.
was saying if they split.
Yeah, well,
Final thoughts to Albert here.
Again, it's going to be an unusually close election.
Absolutely.
It's really going to come down to the wire. Donald Trump has surprised everyone since last year. Everyone keeps on writing him off. He keeps on winning. He's basically like an avalanche. He's going to be a huge force in the presidential election. It's going to be it's going to be razor thin decision in November.
And I agree, because I think he is likable on some levels. He's charismatic. He had a hit TV show. That means something. Two, he's going to tack left. He's already in favor of gender-neutral bathrooms like the Obama administration. He's on the same page as Bernie when it comes to trade and NAFTA, and he's on the same page as Bernie when it comes to NATO. So I think you're going to see a lot of changes in Donald Trump.
Just remember, we don't have a popular vote, we have an electoral college vote.
Oh, I know that.
And
but
that's really what it
but
comes
we've-
down
but
to.
three
already-
key
we've
states,
already-
including Ohio, are up for grabs, and Donald Trump is leading in Ohio.
we've already seen Donald Trump in the primary. I mean, the charm offensive that he did this week with Paul Ryan is something he can afford to do. The fact is, he's been running this campaign as one long reality show. And he's got the media eating out of his hands. So it's a credit to his mastery of the media that he's gone as far as he has, and he'll continue to do so. It will be extremely close. Your point about Hillary's affect is not to be lost. It's for that reason that it's going to be a lot closer, because people are just drawn to Trump as a telegenic figure, where they're not to Hillary.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much. We'll have a whole lot more of Fresh Outlook straight ahead. Up next, we're going to talk about a scandal that is rocking the moneyed folks around the world. It is called the Panama Papers. More on that after this.